إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير هدي هدي رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Before we begin, أحبتي, I want to remember something or recall something that I've been reminded of by several of you, brothers and sisters. And that is that there are plenty from the brothers and from the sisters who, when it comes to the Jum'ah khutbah, that they're on their phones. They're checking social media, they're answering texts, emails, playing video games, they're talking with each other. And sometimes the brothers or maybe the sisters, they're communicating, conversating as though this is the time to talk to the person that they haven't seen since last Jumu'ah. I want to remind you that the Jumu'ah khutbah, to listen, to pay attention, and to not talk or distract yourself or anybody else, that this is from the worship of Jumu'ah. So if and when somebody is trying to talk to you, or you see somebody, or yourself, if you're playing on your phone, etc., please don't, because the last thing you want to do is come to Jum'ah just as a ritual, something that is a habit, without understanding that you are worshipping Allah Rabbul Alameen. So please do something good for yourself. Come, let this be a moment where you disconnect from the world and from everything else of what's out there and connect with Allah Jalla wa Ala. And do the best that you can to listen and to pay attention and to do something, to learn something, so that you can do something good with it. And as we have been focusing on, and we continue to focus on, suicide, and we focused on mental health, today we're going to focus on prevention, brothers and sisters. And just so that you know, in what we have been focusing on within this past month, the hope and the aim is that we don't stop here, but that if anything, that this inspires us to have conversations, that it inspires us and motivates us to step outside of our comfort zones and to go beyond what there are of stigmas and taboos, to say what we should be saying with regards to each other of communication, and to do the right thing so that nobody is suffering, and that we prevent what is happening within our community of suffering at so many different levels that unfortunately leads to suicide. No one should ever feel that there is no hope, that their life is worthless, that the only escape for them is to die. No one should feel that way. And I know that for some of you this is not comfortable. Because for many of us, our culture dictates to us how we live. And in a lot of our cultures, we don't talk about a lot of things. It's hush-hush. But that's not Islam. And as Muslims, we have an obligation to correct our cultures when they are going contrary to what Islam is. Today, as we focus on prevention, ahibba, we should come to understand that prevention is one of the most beautiful aspects in Islam. If and when somebody were to ask you what attracts you to Islam, this aspect of prevention is a key, most fundamental aspect in Islam, because it is only logical, it is sensible, it is rational to focus on preventing problems and issues than having to deal with the ramifications and the consequences in the aftermath. And when we see how Islam so beautifully focuses on those 5 main aspects of the preservation of religion, of life, of family, of intelligence or learning, as well as wealth, we see that the only way these essentials can be preserved and that they can thrive and they can be generation after generation exist in a way that's going to be meaningful for the person, for the family, for the individual, for society, is that many of the things that are chipping away at each of these, that we can prevent those things from happening. And this is why prevention is so important. And when we think about prevention, brothers and sisters, let's look at it from many aspects. And one of it is from the aspect of maintenance, preventive maintenance. And we're used to this when it comes to some things in our lives. We all have cars for the most part, and one of the things that we do as a regular maintenance is we change the oil. Why do we change the oil in the filter on the car? To prevent the engine from seizing. It is a lot better, smarter, that you spend $40, $50, $60, $100, whatever it costs, in that hour or 2 or 3 to have the car service, that preventive maintenance, than to have to replace the whole entire engine. With regards to our homes, that we replace the roof when the time comes, because we know that in replacing the roof, it's a preventive maintenance from having whatever there is of the elements come into the house and completely ruin the whole entire house. When it comes to ourselves, though, unfortunately, we don't understand it that well. But preventive maintenance, even with regards to us, this complicated, sophisticated, most beautiful creation of Allah Rabbul Alameen, that also applies. In the life science, I quote, improving diagnosis of mental health conditions can help. Most people who commit suicide have seen a doctor within the last year, but many do not get diagnosed with the mental illness that will ultimately kill them. More than 90% of people who commit suicide have diagnosable mental health problems, research shows. But the act itself is very often the response of a stressed out, troubled person to a momentary crisis. So you may say, how is it possible that they go to the doctors and yet they're not? Wallahi, we know that the medical system is far from perfect. And the way that the medical system is tied into the whole insurance aspect, it makes things even worse. And sometimes the quality of even the health practitioners may not be there. Or sometimes the fault may even be something that we ourselves don't really express what it is that's that we're going through so that they can really focus on what's happening. But preventive maintenance, brothers and sisters, among the things is to go ahead and get some counseling. We should stop seeing that if I go see a therapist or a counselor or a mental health expert as though that's a sign of weakness, as though that is something shameful, as though it's going to be this awful mark on my family, as though it somehow disgraces my heritage and lineage, as though that makes me a bad Muslim with weak iman. All of that is nonsense. As individuals, and even as families. Because when we look at the aspect of all of the different factors that lead to and that cause problems, preventing those problems, preventing those factors is where we should be focusing our attention. And it's to make sure that we are focusing on preventive health in regular healthy maintenance. A second thing is limiting access, brothers and sisters. What do I mean? It says, again in life science, that though suicide often seems mysterious and unpreventable, it can be stopped, according to experts. Talking openly about people's suicidal thoughts and keeping them away from lethal means can save lives. Suicide prevention efforts include limiting access to methods of suicide such as firearms, drugs, and poisons, treating mental disorders and substance misuse or abuse, and also trying to do what we can to improve economic conditions. Brothers and sisters, if you see from somebody that they have guns and that they're talking about, or you have recognized through what we have mentioned, things that seem to be signs that this person is suicidal, as family and as friends, you want to do your best to remove those weapons from them. If you hear from the person or notice from the person that they say stuff like, I want to go to sleep and never wake up, I wish that I was, or who knows what, and you know that they have medicines, take those medicines away. Another problem is those painkillers that are opioids that people are also getting addicted to. Jama'ah, we need to speak with each other as family in a way that is meant to be safe, so that we are not further exacerbating whatever there are of problems. We want to remove whatever mechanisms may be there so that this doesn't happen. And mental health experts advise removing opportunity and means for suicidal people. Once the crisis is past, the person can be successfully treated for the underlying mental disorder. Another thing that we want to focus on, which are essential for prevention, is having healthy coping mechanisms, brothers and sisters. Healthy coping mechanisms, and from that is to certainly make sure we stay away from anything and everything that can further compound our problems. Because when we think about life, ahibba, let's understand it's not one thing. What may start as one thing becomes two. What was something simple all of a sudden becomes a bit more complex. That which was something temporary all of a sudden seems to last a little bit longer. And that snowballing, that compounding makes things only worse and worse. And if we do not have good coping mechanisms, well, there's certainly enough bad things out there, including the devil himself, that are going to cause us to turn to cigarettes, cause us to turn to alcohol, cause us to turn to marijuana, cause us to turn to who knows what, to try to numb something of that pain, to get some temporary relief. But wallahi, that is not helping in the least. That is only further making things worse. And if we could understand that the majority of our problems, really they are people problems, then we should understand that there is a great opportunity for us to prevent them. And it really focuses on one thing: beautiful character and manners. Because the more we love somebody and are devoted and committed to them, whatever they say or do, it hurts us even more. That's why the conflicts between spouses sometimes are so horrific. It's because the love that they have, it's most intense. Parents with regard to their children, because the love that they have for their children, that the smallest of things are most intense. And this is why Rasulullah ﷺ said in the hadith that is in At-Targhib wa Tarhib, and it is authentic. He said, إِنَّ مِنْ أَحَبِّكُمْ إِلَيَّ وَأَقْرَبِكُمْ مِنِّي مَجْلِسًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَحَاسِنُكُمْ أَخْلَاقًا. He said, know for sure that from the most beloved of you, the dearest of you to me, and those that are going to be closest to me on Judgment Day, are those who have the most beautiful character and manners. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, in the day and age that we're living in, it's unfortunately part of our pop culture that we say without thinking, that we don't understand the rules of rhetoric of how we're supposed to treat those who are, by Allah Azza wa Jal, given a special place within our lives. We don't understand that words are so powerful that even after the word is gone and said, the effects of that word can last. And this is why in Islam the focus on manners and character has always been essential. It is a foundation for us. With our relationship with Allah Rabbul Alameen, with our relationship with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, with our relationship with each other. And if and when we can focus on ourselves to have and to refine and to nurture and cultivate the best of speech and the best of actions because of us focusing on having the best and most beautiful of thoughts and feelings, wallahi, the majority of our problems are going to go away. Because even though the rest of the world out there may be, for example, cruel, and it may be ugly, and it may be who knows what, when we come home to our families, it's like whatever it was, it should dissolve, not that it becomes worse. And for too many of us, that's what happens. We deal with whatever it is that's out there, we come home, and it only gets worse. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ was encouraging us with this, and he's telling us the opposite too. وَإِنَّ أَبْغَضِكُمْ إِلَيَّ وَأَبْعَدِكُمْ مِنِّي مَجْلِسًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And he says to know for sure that those of you who are the least beloved to me, the least dear, and are going to be the furthest away from me on Judgment Day, those were the exact opposite. And he mentions the ثَرْثَارُونَ وَالْمُتَشَدِّقُونَ وَالْمُتَفَيْهِقُونَ. And most of that deals with speech. Those who talk too much, those who are arrogant, those who are insulting. What else? This next coping mechanism, brothers and sisters, is something that deals with contentment. Because we are living in a very materialistic time and world. الْأَرْضُ أَخَذَتْ زُخْرُفَهَا وَزَيَّنَتْ. The earth, it has become so beautiful in all that we as human beings have been able to, mashallah, build and make and transform of it, that it has reached what we can look at as far as civilization is concerned, yani a pinnacle, top. And it is hard for us to not want what we see, to not want more, to not want better, to not want newer, faster, shinier, whatever it may be that's attractive that's out there. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith that's in a silsilati sahiha, he said to Aba Hurayrata radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Ya Aba Hurayrata kun wari'an takun a'bad al-nas. He said, "Oh Abu Hurairah, be righteous, live righteously, and you're going to be the best worshipper." And he said, وَكُنْ قَنِعًا تَكُنْ أَشْكَرَ النَّاسِ. He said, and be content, you will be the most appreciative person. That's the part we especially want to pay attention to. You want to have a life of gratitude, appreciate what you have. We're too busy looking at what we don't have that we don't appreciate what we have. We don't value what we have. We're looking at those two birds in the tree, but in doing so, we're not understanding, we're not recognizing, we're not benefiting, we're not valuing that bird that we do have. Because of what we don't have, unfortunately, we are torturing ourselves, punishing ourselves, pursuing it, burdening ourselves, stressing ourselves out, our families. Subhanallah. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَحِبَّ لِلنَّاسِ مَا تُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِكَ تَكُنْ مُؤْمِنًا. And love for the people that which you love for yourself, and you'll be a true believer. And he said, conclusion, وَأَحْسِنْ مُجَاوَرَةَ مَنْ جَاوَرَكَ تَكُنْ مُسْلِمًا. And be a beautiful neighbor, and you'll be truly devout. To be content. And part of this issue of contentment, brothers and sisters, that we're suffering from is our attachment to social media. We must pay attention to social media because honestly, it is from akdhabul hadith. Facebook should be called fake book. And all the other ones that have their names, we should give them better monikers because it is all falsities. Yes, there are those who are using it for something good, etc. But the majority of it, what do? We find that people are portraying whatever they have of the best of their life, and they're putting it out there. Man, we are living in a time that people are so self-centered that anything and everything of what we do, we're putting it out there for the world. And it's funny because some folks in America say, why are people worried about the government spying on them, this or that? We readily give up everything about ourselves. I go to eat at a particular place and I take the picture and I say that I'm at so-and-so's. Or I go on vacation, I make sure I'm at the backdrop and I get that nice view. I go to the Kaaba to make my Hajj, to make my Umrah, and I'm sure that I get that picture that people are going to say, MashaAllah. And Allah forbid that people are going to be taking pictures themselves, not dressed properly and in appropriate circumstances, and they're flaunting that sort of stuff off too. And shaitan through that is causing people to look at their own lives and feel like, man, I got such a horrible life. Look at them. They look so happy. Yeah, right. They're living so good. Yeah, right. Who are they trying to convince? The more that people are putting that stuff out there, jama'ah, we are plugging ourselves into the matrix and we don't want to live the real life. We care more to live and see the fake lives of people than we care to live our own lives. And because of this, the level of dissatisfaction that we have within our own lives, in our own jobs, in our own kids, our own spouses, our own families, our own house, our own car, whatever it may be, we're bringing and piling on the problems for ourselves. Here's a little statistic. Research published in June of 2013, and this is a little old, suggests that people who use Facebook excessively, that means checking it more than hourly, are more likely to experience Facebook-related conflict with their romantic partners, which may then cause negative relationship outcomes, including emotional and physical cheating, breakup, and divorce. Well, if that's the case with regards to relationships, it's also the case with regards to many other things. Ahibati, some other tools for coping mechanisms that we should pay attention to, inshallah. And these are no way exhaustive. Bullets. You want to get to know yourself better and treat yourself better. And part of what you want to do in being able to treat yourself better is realize what you like and what brings you a sense of enjoyment, what brings you a sense of satisfaction, what brings you a sense of comfort. And then you treat yourself good, so that this way, if anything, inshallah, you're able to overcome those low moments in life. And from them is you want to learn how to breathe. I know that sounds strange because we're all born breathing. But when we look at what some of these specialists say, they say that we don't really breathe correctly. We have a very shallow breathing. And even though that finger thing may be plugged into the monitor and it shows that your oxygen level is okay, it doesn't seem to be necessarily looking at it from a biological or medical standpoint. Breathe. Breathe, and in breathing, allow yourself to calm down and to relax. Exercise. And it can be as simple as just walking. And understand that the connection between the soul, the mind, the body, we still don't understand it well. We know very little. But we certainly know that there's a direct connection between a person who feels good because they're taking care of themselves. And we know the opposite is true. A person who doesn't feel good about themselves because when they look in the mirror, who knows what, or this, that, whatever the case may be, it does affect them in here and in here. Make time to do simple things of exercise. Talk to yourself. No, I don't mean talk to yourself in the way that maybe somebody's going to think you're a lunatic or something of that sort. But you got to be your own best friend. Yeah, you may not have that person who's there to comfort you, to tell you you're great. You're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You're excellent. You're an amazing mother. You're an amazing woman. You're an amazing father and husband. You're an amazing child. You're an amazing son and daughter. You're a good person. Tell yourself that. Even though you don't have somebody that may necessarily be there to acknowledge it and say, you say it to yourself. You pat yourself on the back. Make friends and nurture your friendships and maintain them. And when you have those people that are extra close to you, bring them into your life when you're going through a hard time. There's nothing shameful or wrong about that. To be very honest with you, there's not a person from us here, no matter how beautiful our lives may appear to the person outside, except that beyond those front doors and what's visible from the outside, we're all struggling with one thing or the other. We're all struggling with something or the other. We have health issues, we have family issues, we have work issues, we have whatever. Two heads are always better than one. And when that person that you've tested and you know that they love you and they care about you, when you bring them in, you know that inshallah they're truly invested in your wellness and they don't want anything except what's good for you. Think about and write down some of the most important things in your life that are worth living for. And you want to do this while you're especially doing okay. Why? Because once again, when you're feeling down and you're maybe depressed and who knows what, you're not thinking clearly. You may not be able to function in such a way that you can remember what these things are. But when you're now, write some of that stuff down and keep it accessible, whether it's on your phone or in your closet, on your mirror. Write these things down. Why? Because when you reach a point where you feel like, that's it, I want to throw the towel in, read up there and see what it says. That life is worth living because I have a baby. That child loves me. That child is vulnerable without me. Because my parents are alive. They're getting older and they need somebody in their lives. They need me. Because my spouse, they aren't the devil incarnate, but when they have their problems and stuff, we're going to make it work out. It's going to be better. Because the volunteering of what I do, I am touching the lives of people, even though they may not necessarily tell me or say so. Write whatever those things are down. And then the largest thing of all that you want to write down is because Allah loves me. I would wish that we could put those big bumper stickers on our car because we see the Christians do it. Jesus loves you. He does love me because I'm a good Muslim. But what's most important is that Allah loves me. And Allah loves you with me with all of our imperfections. He loves you more than your mother and your father and your grandparents and your family combined. And we need to remember that. And this life that He has given us is a gift from Him subhanahu. And we need to show our love, reciprocate our love for Him because He is the one that loves us more than anything that He has created this earth. Not because of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but He's created it for humanity as a whole and those who even came before, but for us. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ. He has placed all of this at your disposal for your benefit, for your wellness. And what He promises us in the hereafter is even better. And if we can look at this and some of the other things of coping mechanisms, brothers and sisters that are out there, and if you reach out to that counselor, that therapist, they'll be able to give you even more and better, inshallah azza wa jal. But in doing so, you have a wonderful support system in yourself, for yourself, and around you, that when you go through those dark and gloomy days, that you do see the sun at the end of the tunnel. You do realize that this is something that is only limited and it will pass, and you ultimately will get through it and feel blessed and stronger. And I pray that Allah Rabbul Alameen bless us to be from those that as we hear and learn, that we take the best of it and apply it in our lives and share it with others. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. If we can once again move in and make space, inshallah. We have plenty of brothers that are standing out there in the hall. Let us make space, inshallah. Let's accommodate each other, please. Ahibati, the last two things that I want to focus on that are hopefully preventive measures. The first is gratitude. We want to live with a mindset of gratitude so that we live with gratitude. And one of the ways to help us do that is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us in the hadith that's in Al-Bukhari Muslim, where he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, انظر إلى من هو تحتك ولا تنظر إلى من هو فوقك فإنه أجدر ألا تزدري نعمة الله. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in life, look at those that are less fortunate than you. Look at those that have less than you. Look at those who are worse off than you. Don't look at those that you're looking up to them, that they seem to be better or this and have more of that, etc. Because if you look at those that are being tested and have less or whatever the case is, you're going to be all the more grateful and appreciative for what you have. It's about living life in balance and perspective. We're doing ourselves a disservice if we're looking at the fake lifestyles of people and saying, oh, I don't have this, and look what they have, and I don't have that, and look how beautiful or handsome, and look at mine, and look at how this, and look. You're only doing a tremendous disservice to yourself in doing so. Why? Because you're being so biased and unfair. You're not going to appreciate anything of what you have. But when you look at those who have far less, yeah, you may have that old car. But when you look at the person who's riding his bicycle, the person who's walking, you may look and see that you're still renting an apartment and feel like, but there's folks that are homeless. You may be suffering with something chronic of health, but wallahi, there are those that are suffering with even worse health issues. You may be suffering with something in your family. There are those who are suffering with even more intense things within their family. And if and when you can put it to perspective like that, you're going to say, Alhamdulillah, because we understand, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. That's when we come to appreciate and believe that Allah Azza wa Jalla does not burden a person with anything more that's beyond their capability. And that's important for us in our aqeedah, our belief. And the last thing is to continue to nurture our relationship with Allah Rabbul Alameen, because brothers and sisters, in this life we are going to be faced with disappointments. We're going to have expectations for people, and those expectations are not going to be met, they're going to be failed. They're going to fail in them. We're going to have expectations of ourselves, and those things are not going to be met. Life is going to be filled with that which brings us harm, which brings us pain, which brings us suffering. But understand, the only one that can really alleviate that for us and fill whatever void we have in our hearts and souls that we're seeking to find within the material world is Allah Rabbul Alameen. And the stronger our relationship with Him Jalla wa Ala is, the greater our sense of comfort is in being His servant and living our lives oriented for Him because of Him Subhanahu. The more that we find happiness in our lives through that connection with Him Jalla fil Ula, the greater those preventive measures are going to be, such that no matter what we're going to face in life, we're going to be okay. And this is where Allah Azza wa Jalla is reminding us in Surah Al-Ra'd, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Those who believe and their hearts find serenity in Allah's remembrance. Behold, it is only in the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jalla that the hearts find peace. Our hearts, our souls, in worshipping Allah Azza wa Jalla, in believing Him, and remembering Him, and serving Him, that's where there's going to truly be that sense of peace, that sense of tranquility, that strength, that inner strength to carry us through. And when everyone else can fail us and does fail us, even our own selves fail us, Allah Azza wa Jalla is the only one that will never fail us, that everything of what He promises is the truth. And with that, alhamdulillah, it will be absolutely clear and certain, and we will be so happy to know that we are from the winners. And I pray that Allah Jalla wa Ala bless us to be from the winners. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa